BetOnline is the #1 source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB and golf to the NBA and NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Some big wins and some big losses already in this Astros season. Let's talk about it on Believe in Astros.
What's up, Astros fans?
This game is turned upside down!
Welcome to the Believe in Astros podcast with your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and former pitcher and Astros broadcaster Mike Stanton. Now, direct from H-Town, here's Balke and Stanton.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to episode 111 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke alongside my co-host Mike Stanton. Got the fresh new intro and ready for another week of Astros baseball.
Yeah, sounds
Mike,
good.
How are you doing this afternoon, my friend?
I'm doing great. Everybody survived the eclipse. The world did not end.
Right.
Even though I didn't really get to see anything because as soon as it started getting dark, it came down in buckets. It rained like crazy. It got dark, but we didn't actually get to see anything, which is, that's fine.
It's fine. That was one of the first things I was going to ask you, is if you got a chance to see it. I was in the same boat. I was at home. It started to get dark, but it started raining, and then that was it. My wife actually was downtown, and she said the sun broke through for just long enough for them to actually see it. She was at work. Oh. And my brother-in-law.
Yeah, I'm further up north. We were getting, I think we were getting rain where maybe some of the. It doesn't happen very often. Usually, south gets rain before the north. But yeah, we were getting hit pretty hard.
My
up here in Montgomery County.
Was out in near Austin. He lives in Austin, and he sent me some incredible photos. They had
my son actually made a trip out to just north of Austin. Just for this occurrence.
I mean, I was thinking about it. Like, somebody posted on Twitter the other day that there was an earthquake in New York and there was a total eclipse. If this were like 500 years ago, they'd have been burning witches.
Oh yeah, the world was coming to an end. Armageddon. The Raptors coming. Yes,
yeah, exactly. We all made it though. I thought it was pretty cool seeing all the different baseball players at stadiums with the, with the glasses on. I thought that was kind of cool. Guys went out and checked out the eclipse before games. I thought that was interesting.
It was. And hey, listen, I mean, if you were in a position to actually see something, that's great. Is it really all that important? No. But it's something's not going to happen for a long, long, long time. So,
well, it'll happen in other parts of the world, just not in our part of the world. I mean, that's the thing.
Right.
I will say
it happens all the time. Yeah.
It was pretty cool that in Cleveland, they were in the line of totality or whatever. Right.
And
so those guys
range,
were like, they had pictures from the ballpark that were pretty cool. I
saw those. Yeah.
I started wondering, like, what if someone had accidentally booked a day game? How would you?
Originally, the Yankees had done that.
Did they really?
Believe it or not, originally they had a 2:00 game scheduled, but they changed it. They even canceled BP. They moved it a few hours later. But yeah, they actually the Bronx in the Bronx they had booked a 2:00 game.
Yeah, that would have not been good. The middle of that game going into. Although I could have been down with seeing the lights come up and the.
Well, listen, the lights now are all LEDs. So they go on and off with light switches. Now the problem is if you would have opened the gates, let people in, you'd have had to give everybody the special glasses.
Yeah, that's right, because people definitely would have burned their eyeballs out. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
There is no doubt about it. Well, Astros had some, there's some good news, bad news, I guess, but they managed to split in Arlington, which honestly was kind of what I was hoping for, given how poorly they had played.
Well, the way the series started, absolutely.
Yeah, especially, that way. Went 10-5 over the Rangers on Monday night. Jordan and Victor Caratini both had homers. The story of the game was pitching, though, which went from really, really bad to like really, really good in the span of like that. Poor Blair Henley. I feel terrible for this guy. he's never pitched really above Double-A, and they just threw him in there.
He had one start in Triple-A.
Yeah, like
he
a
did
sacrificial lamb. I mean, poor guy.
It was an impossible situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you're putting a player that's never been in the big leagues. He wasn't even in big league camp.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with the major league team whatsoever. Makes the AAA team, makes one start, and then at the drop of a hat, hey, by the way, you're not just going to pitch in the big leagues. You're going home to pitch in the big leagues. Grew up just a few miles from Globe Life Field, watching the Rangers. I mean, it was his whole family was there.
I know. And, so sweet.
Listen, if he would have pitched well, it really would have been a miracle.
Right.
Now, I don't think the Astros really thought that they were only going to get one out of him and he was going to give up 5 runs. But you can understand the anxiety and the fear and the excitement and all the emotions going through that young man. So
I'm shocked the dude wasn't barfing on the mound.
He may have done it beforehand.
Yeah,
but
no doubt.
it was not pretty. But hey, you know what? He's officially a big league pitcher.
I know, that's really pretty cool. And apparently they would have called Spencer Arguetti up, but he had just pitched the night before.
Yeah. This was out of necessity.
Yeah. So this was just, what are you going to do? I mean, you don't really have much of a choice. I will say we'll talk about the pitching situation with Framber here in a little bit, but Framber was scratched. And I do want to dig into that a little bit because I have a couple of questions for you about that. But listen, the bullpen was spectacular. They gave up 0 runs and 4 hits the entire rest of the way, which was 8 2/3 innings. And I read something that was one of the longest. I think it was the longest outing for an Astros in a 9-inning game, the longest outing for relief pitching without giving up any runs. And it was just, they were spectacular. And, what did you see in the game that sort of, stuck out to you?
Well, I mean, the way the first inning started, you looked at it and you're like, okay, boys, we're going to have to buckle our chin straps. This could be a long day. This could be one of those crazy slugfests.
Yeah.
But I think the offense did a really nice job. Jordan is a beast. Caratini, hit the home run to help. So they gave the pitching staff, some wiggle room. And I love the offense. They were able to score crooked numbers in 4 different innings. They didn't score it all in one innings, which the Astros are kind of notorious for that one big inning. Mm-hmm. But no, they kept the pressure on. They got Andrew Heaney out of the game, and they did more damage against the bullpen. So outstanding job from the offense. But, really, I thought that the key to the game was Seth Martinez. I mean, he's the guy that you have to give the high five to, the silver, the gold star, whatever you want to, however you want to celebrate him, because he didn't just get you out of the first inning. No. He took all the momentum away from the Texas Rangers. Then from there, the relievers did a nice job of pounding the strike zone. That was a problem in spring training for some of the relievers where, they just weren't throwing enough strikes, too many walks. They didn't do that at all. They were aggressive early in the count. They put the ball in the strike zone. They were able to put hitters away. Well, not a whole lot of strikeouts, but that's not the point. The point is weak contact, and that's what happened. They just did a nice job of every guy that came in of just slamming the door, and it was good to see Brian Abreu go out there and put up a shutout inning at the end. Absolutely.
I wrote a story for the Houston Press that came out today about 5 guys for the Astros who are trying to flip the script on where they've been. And Ronel Blanco is the obvious one because, good Lord, I mean, what can you say about him other than he's been absolutely brilliant? But Seth Martinez was one of my other guys on the list because if you look at his numbers so far, he's got an ERA of 0, which is wild, but his whip is .571 right now.
No base runners.
I mean, he just doesn't. He's only given up. I want to say he's given up something like 3 hits and like 1 walk for the entire season so far in like 7 innings.
Yeah. And just to let people know, big league average is about 1.3 base runners on average per inning.
Right.
And if you have a whip, which is walks and hits to innings pitched, if you have a whip at 1, you're doing great. If you're below 1, you're doing spectacular. And for Seth, it's minuscule. It's next to nothing.
So it's
not just the ERA. He's actually pitched extremely well.
And he's throwing strikes, which is the big thing. Mm-hmm. He's not striking out a boatload of people. He is not a big strikeout pitcher. He's got that sort of sidearm delivery that fools a lot of guys. They have a hard time picking up the ball. The thing that has been really interesting to me is I kind of wondered who was going to pick up not necessarily the Hector Neris mantle after leaving, but the Phil Maton, right? Because Maton was kind of the weird pitcher in that mix of hard throwing bullpen guys.
Yeah.
He was the guy that didn't throw hard and feels like Martinez could be that guy.
And Dusty loved kind of bringing Maton in with runners on. And Maton had an incredible first half of the season. He kind of, came back to earth a little bit in the second half, but the first half was just amazing. What Seth Martinez could be, and the reason is because, Phil Maton, the guy's those 90 miles an hour. I mean, how and he had swing and miss. Yeah. You go, how does he does that? He had some deception. His ball cut. He had a good spin rate. Had some off speed stuff. So there was some deception. And Seth Martinez has the same thing. It's not the same deception. It's unique to Seth Martinez, but he's got that, like you said, that low 3/4, almost sidearm arm slot. The ball's moving all over the place. Breaking ball's got a lot of sweep to it. I think he could be. If he continues to pound the zone, this is a big season for Seth. And the reason it is because 2 years ago, he was outstanding when he got called up. I mean, the league hadn't seen him, and he was pounding the zone, and he got a lot of guys out. Last year was a tough year. Okay. He didn't get off to a good start. He was up and down, and I didn't ever really feel like he got comfortable on the mound, pitching for the Astros in the big leagues. This year, man, he had a good spring training. He came in healthy, and it feels like that he's poised to kind of turn back the clock to 2 years ago.
It's an interesting thing, too, because Brandon Bielak came out yesterday and pitched really well, which is good to see because Bielak has not been good so far this season. He wasn't particularly good in spring training. But I think that when you look at these guys that aren't like the super hard throwers, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit in a minute, but there is something to be said for change of pace, especially when the last three guys in your lineup are going to be Abreu, Presley, and Hader, who are just going to bring heat. There is something to be said for having guys in the lineup who can bring some of that deception. Look at what Brunel Blanco has done by adding a changeup to his repertoire. He has completely altered his the trajectory of his career, frankly.
Sure. No doubt.
With just by adding a pitch. And then again, like you said, staying in the strike zone, which is not, let me ask you this as a former pitcher. How hard is that for a pitcher to, because obviously you want to throw the perfect pitch, I'm sure, every time.
Sure.
How hard is it to trust your stuff and to trust the guys behind you to know that, hey, I'm going to throw this pitch. It's probably going to get a lot of the plate, but I'm going to trust that the stuff is good enough and the people behind me are good enough to make the play and get the out.
Well, the hardest thing to do, Jeff, is for a pitcher to realize the less stuff you have, the more you have to be ahead in the count. You have somebody, like we were just talking about Abreu. We mentioned Abreu. Listen, he's a high velocity, good slider. Does he have to throw strikes? Well, it makes the job easier if he does. But, the hitter is on edge a little bit just because the stuff is so good. But for a guy if you have a guy that doesn't have as good a stuff, he's got to be ahead in the count. He's got to be ahead. If he's not ahead in the count, I tell pitchers all the time, I would rather you throw the ball down the middle on the first pitch than 2-0 after he's seen you for a couple pitches. And, when the stuff is a little bit short, it's just that much more important to go. You don't necessarily have to go strike one. In my opinion, you have to go 1-1. You can't go 2-0. But if you're ahead in the count, now you can expand. It puts the hitter on defense. Now he's in protect mode. Whereas you go ball one, ball two. Now all of a sudden he's in aggressive mode. Now he's not just trying to put the bat on the ball. Now he's trying to drive the ball. And so yeah, it's paramount for a pitcher to be ahead in the count. And this isn't any level. I mean, it 10U doesn't matter.
I mean, look, as if it's easy to just hit a tiny square from, I mean, when throwing the ball as hard as you possibly can. I mean, but nevertheless, I mean, that's what these guys are paid to do. And that's really the key to me that, you see it all the time. People are like throw strikes. It's easier said than done. But the Astros have always been a team, I felt, at least over the last 7 or 8 years, who have preached like, get the ball in the strike zone. Don't nibble around the edges, throw the ball in the strike zone, and trust that your stuff is good enough to get these guys out, to get some ground balls, to get a pop up, whatever it is. I mean, it's
Jeff,
hard
for
to
somebody
get hits.
like Phil Maton. For somebody like Brandon Bielak, it's absolutely. I mean, it couldn't be more important,
right?
Brandon Bielak's he's got a pretty good little changeup. Okay, he's got an okay breaking ball, but everything is at best, I would say, average as far as big league stuff is concerned. So that means that aggressiveness early in the count is just that much more important, because since the stuff is a little bit short, now you can expand the zone. But when you have to come into the zone because you're going ball one, ball two, when you have now all of a sudden hitters are licking their chops.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine it just makes their job so much easier. In a job that hitting the baseball is next to hitting a ball in a hole in golf. It's got to be the most difficult thing to do. Right. Of course, we have to talk about Framber Valdez. He had the dreaded elbow soreness. Now the Astros were kind of downplaying it yesterday, saying that, it didn't seem to be too bad. But this is the same kind of thing we heard about, about certain guys. Like we heard this last year with guys. We've heard this, time and time again. Listen, there's been a rash of injuries. Everyone has kind of discussed this ad nauseum. I don't want to, Saris actually had a pretty good breakdown today about what possibly is behind, the various, spectrum of things that could be behind all this. But I'm more curious about where you think baseball goes from here. It's not so much to me. Yeah, there are injuries. Yes, there's a lot of different reasons. But my questions are, one, can anything actually be done? And if so, what's it actually going to take for MLB to find this to be significant enough to start thinking about meaningful changes to rules or whatever else?
Tough situation, because there are countless reasons for this to happen. Yep. You had Tony Clark and the Players Association come out and say it's because of the pitch clock. Well, I mean, is the pitch clock part of it? Maybe. But if it is a minute, tiny part of the situation. Then Major League Baseball comes out with a pretty strong statement, just completely disclaiming that the pitch clock has anything to do with it, and basically blamed it on the pitchers for throwing too hard and trying to spin the ball too much. Well, that's all the organizations. Yeah. That's what all the organizations want. They want high velocity. They want high spin rate. They want max effort all the time. The balls have changed. But listen, this goes all the way back into amateur baseball.
Right.
And I'm not talking about college. I'm not talking about high school. I'm talking about younger than that. Everyone wants velocity. Everybody wants, and the pitchability has really gone by the wayside in baseball across the board. I mean, you see there's organizations, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. There's organizations out there that are just velocity camps. You come to my camp, I'll make you throw the ball 5 miles an hour harder. Okay, but can you throw a strike? I didn't say that. I said I can make you throw the ball 5 miles an hour harder. But the velocity doesn't do any good if you don't know where it's going.
Right.
Where do you go from here? Jeff, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't, because I don't think there is a fix. Because we would have to change the complete mindset of the whole industry and then have that trickle down into amateur baseball also. And I just don't think that's going to happen. The worst invention in baseball was the radar gun.
Oh, no doubt.
How hard do you throw? How hard do you throw?
Right.
Well, the second would be those really high-end cameras that can tell you how fast the ball is spinning and all the data and analytics and all that kind of stuff. What pitchability is, I was taught, and I teach pitchers on a daily basis now, that pitching is real estate. It's location, location, location. It's not how good your stuff is. If you can put the ball in the spot that you want to put it, change speeds a little bit, you'll get dudes out, regardless of how hard or soft you throw.
I just think what's so interesting to me about this is not as someone who didn't pitch in his life outside of his front yard with his buddies.
Wiffle ball.
Yeah, tennis ball. Tennis ball, man. That was
tennis ball.
Yeah, it was the tennis and no catching off the roof. The thing to me is, first of all, the argument between the Players Association and the ownership is ridiculous.
It is. It's bad optics.
It's ridiculous because, first of all, the players are crazy to think that the main reason that guys are getting hurt is because of the pitch clock, and the owners are crazy to think that there is absolutely zero correlation between the pitch clock and some of these injuries.
Right.
I mean, they're both wrong. I mean, the reality is it plays a role. How much of a role, we don't really know because we don't have the data. We've only seen one season of this.
Yeah.
In the minors.
Yeah, you're in your second season.
In the minors, they've had a slight uptick, but can you say it's definitively the pitch clock? No, because it's also come with, like you said, the increase in velocity and the increase in analytics talking about spin rate, which I think. And then which a lot of people have discussed the spin rate being maybe even a bigger cause because of the torque that you have to, the torsion that you put. And then there's the whole thing of gripping the ball too hard. Like it feels to me like it's just a confluence of issues that you cannot just simply say, well, we'll fix it by doing X. But I feel like that's what baseball might do. They'll pick something and they'll say, well, all right, we'll tweak this and that should take care of it. And of course that won't do anything because nobody's really invested in fixing the problem because, well, if we lose a few star pitchers every year, that's the price we got to pay for being Major League Baseball.
Roll them to the side, bring in another arm. And that's really, to tell you the truth, that's how it's always been.
Right. Well,
you go back 50, 60, 70 years, they still had injuries.
Of course.
But you didn't try and come back from it. If you blew out your arm, you were done. They just bring in somebody else to take your spot. And now, with technology in the medical fields and everything like that, we've got Tommy John, we've got shoulder, surgeries and stuff like that, and guys have to come back. But there's no doubt we have another pandemic. And this pandemic has actually been going on for a long time. This is not something that just came up. When I say a long time, I'm talking about decade plus.
Well, and you really kind of hit the nail on the head too. And being a coach, I'm sure you understand this intimately. And that is, we place, and this is just generally speaking about everything, we place way too much pressure on kids to be successful at sort of like a pro level before they're even out of puberty. Right. Mm-hmm. There's too much because whether it's your 40-yard dash speed or how many reps you can lift on the bench or whatever it is, when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, you have no business working on any of that stuff. Right. At that point in your life, you need to be just making yourself feel better, understanding where your body is going. You don't need to be trying to put a max spin on a curveball. That's not going to help anybody. Right. Yeah.
You need to be concentrating on the fundamentals. If you're a pitcher, using the proper mechanics to try and help keep yourself healthy. The problem is, God did not create us to throw overhand. That's just simple truth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why our elbows and shoulders break.
Yep.
If you want an example, go when the softball, the girls softball College World Series is over.
Crazy.
Go look at the numbers of the number one pitcher on the number one team. It's going to be unbelievable. And I don't use that term very often.
Right.
What's going to make it unbelievable is she's going to throw like 300 innings this season. Not this year, this season. She's going to strike out, 400, 500, 600 batters, depending on how good she is. I mean, the numbers, especially when you relate them to baseball, I mean, it's like that's completely different league, but that is a natural movement. The way they throw the baseball or the softball is a natural movement compared to, baseball players throwing overhand.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's just like this in any sport. You see that the influence of these things trickle down. I know, like I for years have played pickup basketball, and one of the things you see all the time when you're playing pickup basketball is guys who are tremendously athletic, but never had to learn how to do anything else because, they played high school basketball, they played middle school, whatever. Now they're old like me, and they, and so they never had to learn how to shoot. Right. They never had to learn how to really, and so they're firing stuff up from 30 feet out and clanging it off the rim. And they never really learned anything else because they didn't have to. And I feel like that's one of the things that with the AAU programs in basketball and with all of the youth baseball and everything, I think there is an overemphasis on that stuff with kids. And, that's kind of on the parents, really. To make sure their kids are, look at what's happening in football. There is no doubt there is basically an exodus that is happening from Pop Warner football because it's dangerous. And, it leads to serious concussive issues, no matter what kind of helmet you put on you. And so I think, these are things that we all have to collectively as a society be thinking about, never mind in sports.
Sure. Yeah. There's no doubt there's an issue. A lot of times it is the parents. I deal with trying parents all the time.
I bet.
Try to talk them off the ledge. Yes, your 11-year-old baseball player doesn't have to be the best player in the country. Just let him have some fun.
Right.
Let's work on his mechanics. But I've always told parents that the number one thing a child has to do is he has to have fun. If he's not having fun, then he's going to get burned out. So you're going to spend all the money on making him better. And then by the time he can there can be a return, whether it's, when you get into high school or even, get to college, they don't want to play anymore. That's why I'm a big advocate of a multi-sport athlete. I think that you need to do something else, but I'm seeing it, again, on a daily basis of athletes young athletes that are single sport athletes from, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah. No, as a musician, I can tell you when I used to spend time woodshedding all those many years ago, and I was playing 6-8 hours a day trying to get better. You can't dedicate all that time strictly to just running scales. You are going to get bored out of your mind. So you have to do, and not to mention the fact that it's not creative. And that's part of what fuels the drive to do anything is the creativity and the interest and things like that. So I'm with you on that. All right. Well, we can't solve the world's problems, Mike. As much as I think we'd like to, we cannot. As much as
you know what? I don't think I want that anyways. I don't think I want that pressure.
I don't want that responsibility. I do not. I have enough problems. The last thing I need is trying to solve the world's issues. But we can talk about the Astros in KC to face the Royals. Yeah. Royals are an interesting team, right? Because first of all, they're not very good, but they're 6-4 because they just went 4-0 against the White Sox, who are absolutely awful.
Right.
And when you look at their starters, their starting pitchers, their Astros are going to face 3 starters, 2 of which who have sub-1 ERAs and one with a 146. They're kind of I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, from them.
They got some talent. They got Bobby Witt Jr., who's one of the premier young players in the sport. No one really talks that much about him except in certain groups, just simply because he plays for Kansas City.
He's spectacular.
It's not a terrible team. They're a very young team. They're probably not going to win a whole lot of games, but everybody has a run in them. And it seems like Kansas City right now is on their run. So, the Astros are going to have to go in and play good baseball. They're going to have to go in and play, something that Joe Espada has talked about the whole time, playing clean baseball.
Right.
Making sure that, the routine play isn't out, executing your pitches, grinding out your at-bats, whatever it may be, and then they should be fine. The Astros are coming off of a high. That win yesterday was big for them just simply because it started out so poorly.
And a 10-run game, which seems to be the curse of the Astros.
Right.
The game after.
Well, like I said, and they didn't do it all in one inning. They actually put crooked numbers up in 4 different innings.
Right.
That's huge for any team, but that's huge for the Astros, who's kind of notorious for that one big inning.
Yeah. And by the way, anyone who was saying that they needed to just move Yordan around and that would make them better, come on, man. Yordan's going to hit wherever Yordan is going to hit. Don't worry about Yordan.
Pitchers aren't going to face him differently because he's hitting in the 2-hole than hitting in the 3-hole or 4-hole. You're not pitching to the position in the lineup. You're pitching to the hitter.
The man is going to crush the baseball. That is just a fact of life. That is not going to change. So nobody needs to worry about where he's located in the lineup. Wherever he is, as many at-bats as you can get him, the better. Because to this day, look, we've been watching Yordan now for several years, and it's still must-see baseball when he comes up to the plate. You don't know what he's going to do with that. You're right, mentioning Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt is one of the really under-the-radar great baseball players in baseball. Mm-hmm. And he went back and signed with Kansas City. He committed to stay there, which I think is really an interesting move. And you're right, they're very young. Christian Javier is on the mound tonight. He's been quite good so far this year. They're also going to get Hunter Brown and JP France in the 3-game series. I really want to see the Astros string together some offensive consistency. It's felt like the one thing I can say out of everything that's happened this season, they've been good defensively. This has been a much better defensive team, the Astros defensive team, than it was last season, where they kind of had a dip. They've been very good defensively. I just would like to see them string together some offense consistently, because they can pitch, but you got to help them out with some runs, man.
Sure. I mean, consistency is every team's problem.
Right.
And offense. Listen, hitting the baseball is the hardest thing to do in professional sports. Period. There's not even any question.
It's ridiculous.
Even golf. Yeah, golf is tough, but the ball's not moving. So there's a good point, Mike. There's a big difference, and so that's why it's not really about the numbers. It's going to be about the quality of at bat. It's going to be about the grinding of at bat. How many pitches can you see?
Right.
When the pitcher does make a mistake, and they always make mistakes. When the pitcher does make the mistake, can you put the swing on it and capitalize on that mistake, or do you foul it off? So that's what it's really all about. And listen, this is the first non-playoff team that the Astros have faced this year. Now, they're playing very good. They've got a winning record, but through this first month plus of the season, the Astros face nothing but playoff teams.
Oh yeah, there's no easy outs for them. And by the way, I'd love to see Tiger Woods take a swing at a changeup golf ball. I'd like to see that. And maybe we should add that to golf. Like, get a little extra incentive instead of just hitting the ball off a tee. You've got to take. You got to get a guy out there who throws you a wicked slider and see if you can yank that one.
Well,
onto
actually,
the green.
what they can do is instead of playing the sport, go play golf with a bat. Toss the ball up and hit the golf ball instead of using a golf club, because it's actually pretty fun, because you can hit a golf ball a long ways.
I remember doing that when I was a kid. Everybody, it's like you take get a golf ball and smack it with a tennis racket and see what happens.
Oh yeah,
it goes a hell of a long way. Maybe this should be a new sport for the Ocho. ESPN, the Ocho, get you. It'll be like a slap fest
right after the dodgeball tournament,
followed by dodgeball, followed by golf club, followed by golf played with a baseball bat. This is
there you go.
Look, I'm going to go pitch this to ESPN immediately after getting off this. Well, thanks everybody for joining us on Believe in Astros. We're very happy you guys could be with us. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, obviously also on YouTube, and give us a follow on X and Instagram at Believe in Astros. I'm at Jeff Balke. Mike is at Mike Stanton 29, and you can find us all over social media. We'll be back later this week with a little update and what's going to happen over the weekend. The Astros are in an interesting spot, Mike. They're going from the Royals, and then they're going to go to it's going to be Rangers and Braves. No rest for the weary.
Right.
And it's not going to get any easier for them. So they better.
Yeah. This is a tough part of the season.
Yeah.
Especially coming right out of the box. Really what you're looking for them to do right now Yeah, you would love for them to get on a roll, win some ball games, get back up to 500, get over 500. Really what you're trying to do is just tread water here.
Yep.
Just don't bury yourself. Don't do what the Seattle Mariners have done the last couple of years, which is just dig themselves a deep hole. They get out of it, but man, it takes all summer to do it.
Continue to do this year.
Yeah. Tread water through this tough time in the schedule.
Yeah, and maybe Alex Bregman, bring your average up in April. Just a thought. Just a consideration. I mean, it would be new.
Maybe he can build on yesterday. We got 2 or 3 hits yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything would be good at this point, man. What was it Bill Murray said in Groundhog Day? Anything different is good. I'll take it. All right, thanks, everybody. We will see you soon. Obviously, send us your comments and questions. We will definitely answer them for you. And as always, go Astros.
Adios.